take the risk to having and to experiencing everything that a productive, healthy marriage has to offer you, and what God has to offer you.
I've found out for you to have everything that God intends for you, you got to be willing to lose it all. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. You got to lose your dignity, lose your pride, whatever you want to call it. You got to be willing to let go of all that to be able to get what God has for you.
Thanks for joining the Home Matters Podcast with Eric and Gina Boggs, where they lead authentic, raw discussions about marriage, family life, kids, intimacy, and sex from a biblical perspective. Here's your host, Eric and Gina Boggs.
Well, welcome back to Home Matters Podcast.
Glad you're joining us today.
Yes, we are.
Rest or play. I don't know what you're doing right now while you're listening, but
you might not want to know what everybody's doing right now.
True.
Might just be riding down the road to work, though.
Yeah, it might be riding down the road to work. Might be, I don't know, working out.
That's what I need to be doing.
Might be in the restroom.
Oh, my goodness.
Might be.
Okay. I'm
going
to give you a do-over on that.
They might be in the reading room.
Yes, exactly. The study room. That's what we call it. But this is actually part two. Part two is starting over.
Starting over.
Yeah, we started talking about this.
And I'm using the word do-over now. Starting over, do-over. I'm using those interchangeably. So.
Okay. That's why I said I'm giving you a do-over on this introduction here.
So we talked about it last time, and again, we're coming back to it. We talked about the fact that we kind of face the resistance or the difficulties, the challenges of marriage and family, raising kids, all that stuff, and we deal with our humanity. And we use this passage, and let's hit that right off the start.
Yes, the passage in Lamentations, we shared it last time, chapter 3, verses 22, 23, where it tells us that the Lord gives us new mercy, new grace. We are not consumed because of the mercy, the grace the Lord, or the grace that the Lord offers us. It ends there with great is thy faithfulness.
Yep.
God's faithful in giving us a new start.
And let me preach for a minute, just for context. It's a bad situation.
Absolutely.
And
where Jeremiah
the prophet's talking. You heard it last week. He said, "Man, it's awful. Things are awful. The situation, Jerusalem's destroyed. Everything I'm used to is gone. It's a mess." And in the middle of that, that's where he's reminded of God's mercy, His compassion. It fails not. And realizing that God is faithful. He'll keep you if you'll just honor God and turn to Him and ask Him.
That's right.
He'll show you.
He is faithful to us in all of our situations. But as a follower of Jesus, I think that we have to be open to realizing that it is our responsibility to offer grace and to offer mercy to many, but especially we zeroed in last week, we offer that a lot of times outside the windows of our own home.
Anybody and everybody except at home.
Right. Yep. Cleaning me up, fixing me. But we got to offer that grace and mercy to those that we live with every day, because we said it's easy to get stuck in the frustrations, the aggravations of every day, but realizing God gives us a new start every day, and man, maybe you need a new start in your relationship
and you offer the do-over or the start over, or you realize that I got to start over. Yeah. I get a do-over, and in that, I know that with that, I think about a do-over. Sometimes people are afraid of that. People are afraid of giving another opportunity.
Of offering that opportunity.
Especially offering or even trying themselves again. Yeah. Because they're afraid if they do that and they miss it, or they, they give another opportunity and that person, again, kind of squanders the opportunity. We're afraid of that.
It's the vulnerability that is required of us to maybe open our life up to being hurt again or being disappointed again.
Yeah, and again, the thing is what do you get out of it, and what can you get out of it? I'm reminded of a game that I used to play. We used to play when we were kids, and even adults, called Around the World in basketball. And Around the World, the way it worked is you started out, you tried the shot, and you worked around the perimeter of the basket, but you start out right under the basket. Yeah, that was the world. You did a circle around the basket. and you took the first shot. If you missed it, you got a do-over. And the do-over, if you didn't make that shot, you had to go back to the start. So the thing is as you move around the world, if you're at stage number 3, you got to consider, all right, if I take this do-over, you don't have to do the do-over. You can stay at the same spot. Am I making sense?
You don't have to take the do-over.
You don't have to take the do-over, but
so you only get one do-over?
You get one shot, and if you make the shot, you get to move to the next step.
Okay.
All right, if you miss the shot, you get a do-over.
Or you can just stay there.
And
be miserable.
That's right.
I'm making it fit here. That's right.
And again, the thing is a lot of people are afraid of the do-over because they're afraid if they take the next shot, they'll have to go back to square one or they'll lose. And the fact is if you make it, you get to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do the do-overs in life. They don't offer the do-overs. They don't try the do-overs. They don't try to start over.
Right. They just get
because
stuck
they
and
just
miserable,
kind of stuck
right?
where they. I think marriage especially is prone to get that.
That's good.
In that place where you just you need a do-over, man. And you say, well, what if I do this and they don't act right or she don't act right or whatever? Mm-hmm. Well, what if they do? I've always said, people say I can't. That may not work or we may. What if we try and we fail? Well, what if you try and it works?
Yeah.
And that's all. That's my point. I mean, again, some people are afraid to take the risk. Mm-hmm. That's the thing around the world. That's kind
taking
of the point.
risk.
I know I went way off there, but it's the risk. When you get the do-over shot, you realize I'm doing this do-over because I believe I can make it.
Yeah.
I can make the shot.
That's
but
good.
if I don't, I got to go back to phase 1 or the first shot.
That's good.
Got to go back to shot 1. But again, if you do, then you get going to the next shot, next step.
That's good.
And all I'm saying is, man, why don't you do the do-over?
Absolutely. I mean, take the risk to having and to experiencing everything that a productive, healthy marriage has to offer you and what God has to offer you.
I've found out, though, that you have to, for you to have everything that God intends for you, you got to be willing to lose it all.
That's good.
You got to be willing to. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. You got to lose your dignity, lose your pride, whatever you want to call it. You got to be willing to let go of all that to be able to get what God has for you.
That's good.
And there's so many people, especially marriage and family, the reason they don't do the do-overs is because they're afraid they'll lose everything. No, you've already lost it.
Yeah, there's so much to gain.
You can't lose what you hadn't got. And a lot of people never get what God's got for their marriage or for their family, for their children, because they're so entrenched and white-knuckled, holding on to what they have right now instead of going for what God's got for you. Risk it all.
Man, that's
and
encouraging.
a life of faith, and say, you know what, I'm going to do it God's way, and if I lose it all, that's fine. If I'm doing it God's way, but you'll find out time after time. He will faithful.
Not fail us. That's faithful. What the word says. His grace, His mercy is new every day.
You do it
He's
God's
faithful.
way.
You do it God's way, and it will work every single time.
Every time.
Now, we left off last time just saying that we're going to share maybe some tactics, some steps to the start over of every day, to starting over, for the do-over. Sorry, I need to call it the do-over, right? And the first of those, really, I think is good. I think is offering acceptance. Acceptance, just realizing that I committed to you, and the good, the bad, the richer, the poorer, the sickness and in health. I accept you. I accept you with your imperfections, although they be so very few.
I know.
I accept you with your mess ups, your attitudes, and the same. All your shortcomings, all your deficiencies, all my junk. Okay.
Your woman stuff. I mean, all that. I mean, I take all of that.
Woman stuff. Yeah, all that stuff you don't understand. Right?
Yeah. No, I don't. Again,
listen, we didn't marry perfection. I think we said that maybe earlier with the kids. I know we think we did, but we married a human that's so capable of human stuff, right? Of hurting, maybe not intentionally, hopefully not intentionally, but the way we are, just the way we are in our humanity that breaks through sometimes.
I always think of it this way: it is unconditional. This love is unconditional. Now, again, it doesn't mean that I have to go along with everything, or I have to agree with everything, or approve of everything, but it does mean that I have in this relationship, especially with our children, right?
Yeah.
There's an environment of acceptance that we love each other in spite of, the things that are going on. And again, sometimes love means that I'm committed to your good. That means that I'm willing to deal with issues. I'm willing to confront. I don't think you really love somebody until you're willing to be honest with them.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out, because we're not saying you just accept, sin and wrong and, over and
anything
over
destructive,
again.
Right?
The
destruction. Going to be destructive to your relationship.
No, but as a person, I accept you and love you in the way that God does, and then we are willing, to confront the things that need to be confronted.
I think the second piece helps with that. Okay. Because, again, I think that with that, again, we recognize that one of the things I've got to do every day is there has to be that live, real acceptance, right? But the second thing I have to do is I have to be willing to make adjustments.
That's good,
and, when it
making
comes
some change, right?
Yeah, making changes.
Absolutely.
And, that's something that we can do together as a married couple. Or there are things that I have to personally.
Yeah.
I have to make adjustments. I have to change.
Right. Well, I think each of us, if we're honest, as husband, wife, even as parents, there are things in your life that you need to make a change. You need to stop doing that, or you need to start doing this. Some things that you could do to make the relationship better, more productive, more fulfilling and satisfying for both of you.
I know there's some things you need to do different.
I know. You want to make me a list, don't you?
Well, I think there's the problem, right?
What's that?
Because that's where a lot of people live.
Oh, pointing out
they want
others.
everybody else to change, but they don't want to change themselves. They want everybody else to make the adjustments. And I always talk in premarital counseling, we talk to couples and say, look, if you have a great marriage, you got to be willing to bend. You got to be willing to give. You got to be the one willing to change.
That's right.
Because here's what happens most of the time. We want to impose change on everybody else.
Right.
We want everybody to fit our little form.
Change.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. And again,
why do I need to change?
We say that kind of lightly, but
this is the way I was when you married me.
Exactly. and again, we say that kind of in lightheartedly or in jest, but it's not. It's not a joke, because that happens over and over again. We live our lives, most of us, we are prone to be selfish. We can be. For us to die to that.
We see that in children, right?
Oh, dear God, help us. But we're prone to that. We want everybody else to line up with what we want. If everybody would be just like me, we'd have a perfect world.
What a beautiful world it would be.
Yeah, what a beautiful world. But the fact is, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a wonderful Christmas, that kind of thing. But
okay.
I'm just saying that most people, that if or that but in your life that stands in the way, if she would but he does, if we would get rid of that and say, you know what, I'm going to be the one. I'm the one that's willing to change. I'm the one that's willing to make the adjustment that'll help my marriage, that'll help my family, that'll help me as a father. If I'm the one that's willing to do that, then guess what? Everybody can move along.
Absolutely. And what a great place to start a do-over. I mean, just to get up and say, all right, I've been knowing I need to do this differently for years. Today's the day. I'm going to do something different.
Sure.
Man, I mean, open yourself up. Can you pray that way? I'd encourage you to pray that way. God, what in me needs changing to make this marriage better? What can I do differently to make this marriage better? But you don't know
what they've done. I hear this stuff.
I know.
You don't know. I don't. But again, it's a good place to start with us, right?
That's right. I mean, it's a choice of, do I just want to stay here in this, what we have now, or you said it earlier, am I going for everything that God has for us as a couple?
Yep.
Yeah.
And with that again, this thing of making adjustments, making changes. And what do you do with the person though? What do you do with the person who you do feel like needs to change, you do feel like has done wrong? We've talked about acceptance and making adjustments personally.
Yeah. I think this next part of the start over, the do-over, is forgiveness. We don't like to talk about that word.
That's something that's got to be.
Just throw it out there and keep moving, right?
I think that has to be in our heart. That has to be something that we carry. And you know what? I'll say this, maybe it's not something that people deal with, but I see a lot of people that are followers of the Lord, that are Christian, that they really, it's easy to justify our unforgiveness.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes
based
to those
on what
people
others have done, said,
people
acted.
have wronged us.
Yeah.
But then I'm reminded how strong Jesus was about forgiveness.
He was just as plain as anybody could be. If you don't forgive, then if you don't offer forgiveness, then you don't get any.
And we miss that. And I just think that and you say, well, I can't do that. I always call it forgiveness by faith. Why don't you begin to say it?
Start talking about it, right?
Talk about it. Yeah, say it by faith. Give power to that, life to that.
Yes.
And begin to say it anyway. If he's wronged you, begin to forgive him. You don't have to go to him tomorrow and say, hey, I want you to know I forgive you for being a jerk. But again, if you begin to say it to yourself, there may come a time that you get to say it to the other person. But I think that we have to operate in that spirit of forgiveness.
So true.
And with that, it's like you've heard said, when we hold unforgiveness, it's like drinking poison and thinking it's hurting the other person. And
it's hurting us, right?
It's hurting us.
It's hurting our relationship. That it stunts any growth that you could potentially have in your relationship. You can try. I'll be willing to say you can try other things. You can try some adjustments. You can, try some of the other things we're going to talk about. But if you are harboring unforgiveness in your heart, it's always coming back up.
Always.
Right? Always. You're never going to get to the things that God has for you as a couple, experience the beauty of the intimate relationship that God planned for you if you continue to hold on.
It is like a disease. It's like a cancer. It's like something in your relationship that will continue to cause corruption. It'll continue to deteriorate. Again, that's something you can't. And I think that we're probably talking to somebody that's listening, probably multiple people, that you really just need to give up. You need to give up. You need to give in and say, you know what, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I know it's what you've called me to, and I know that's what you've offered me, and I know that's what's real in me. And if you'll give that opportunity for the Lord to begin to deal with that thing, it may not happen overnight. You may not feel it tomorrow.
Could, but probably won't. I think more often than not, forgiveness is a process. I think that God can just begin to remove the sting of the pain or the hurt. I think you begin to see that the sting of that kind of begins to dull and numb. But as far as people say, I can forgive, I can't forget, I think that in the process of forgiveness that you do come to a place where even remembering it is hard to do.
Yep, I agree. I've had it work in my own life. Yeah,
thank you, Lord, that He'll enable us to do that.
Yep.
He will do it. What about this one? Let's go here before we close out today. Another step, affection.
We need a lot more time to talk about this one.
I know. We need more time to talk about affection, but I think you're like, well, they just aggravated me and frustrated me. The last thing I want to do is get up and make them think I want to be affectionate with them. But listen, that affection is what promotes the atmosphere of intimacy in your relationship. And man, you have to have intimacy to survive. Sure.
And affection is something that we should realize. It is, for the marriage relationship, it is absolutely
it's the life, the breath.
Necessary. We always talk about the intimate relationship and it being healthy. And if that's healthy, then
without that, it's just any other relationship, right? There's an
but if
intimate.
that part of your life is healthy, it bleeds into all other areas.
So true.
It nurtures all the other areas of your life. You can have
Yeah.
financial issues, or you can have even issues with people, in-laws. You can have issues with,
I think you can even have issues within the relationship between the two of you, whether it's like communication or, those type things. I still think that intimate part is just such a health
if you'll
to any
work
of
at
it.
the affection.
Yes.
And I know people, so I'm just not that affectionate. You once were.
Yeah.
I would say that
and
most of the people that are married, most of the married couples, and I know we're kind of centering in here on that, but I would say that most of you that are married, at one time you were affectionate.
Right. And we're talking about all kinds of affection here, okay?
Sure.
Because people define that very differently. Whether it is, making love and having sex, that's affection, but I'm talking about holding hands.
Amen.
That's right. You like that one, don't you?
Yes.
I'm talking about just the
Amen.
affection of, I walk by his chair maybe in the family room. And
Affection is an attitude as well, though.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's just an openness and an attitude that we just want the person to know that, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about you. And I think we said a few weeks ago, if we think differently about our spouse, it'll help us sometime.
Yeah.
And,
that's so true.
Even with kids, you have to have affection that is alive in your home. I think what raises healthy kids, productive kids, is for them to have the nurture and the affection from mom and dad.
Absolutely.
Just healthy affection.
We all need affection. We all need to be. I mean, you can go into studies. There's so many out there about touches and, how many children need, how many we need. We were not built to be alone and to be isolated from everybody else, not in our position nor in our physical being.
Right.
We are created for touch, for feel, for affection.
Right. Hey, you get to do this thing together.
Yeah.
And again, what we're saying is, man, do it over. Start over today. Again, it's not easy.
No.
It takes a lot of effort. All these things, again, making adjustments, it's not easy.
I mean, I think
Offer
it takes some
forgiveness.
humility on our part to say, hey, I am willing to do something different to have everything that God has for us.
Love his Henry Ford quote. Can I end with that?
That's a good one, yeah.
He said, coming together is the beginning. Keeping together is a process, and working together is a success. And I think, boy, again, it's one thing to come together. It's another thing to stay together, be together, keep together. But, boy, when you work together, you can really attain and achieve the things of God. None of us have arrived.
Nope.
But let's all be on our way, right?
That's right. We're on our way. And, man, let's do it together. Come on, husband,
Every
wife,
day.
family. Doing it together every day. Man, your home matters.
get a
We're
new
excited about what God's doing at your house
Do
today,
over.
right?
Start over today.
That's right. See
Hey,
you next
God
time.
bless you.
Yeah.
See you then.